Hello, everyone. It's such a privilege for me to be here. It's the first time. So I appreciate giving me time to say a thing or two. It's a whole month thinking about what I'm going to say and I'm going to say what is the best thing to say. I've been davening, like we say in the beginning of Ramadan, that Hashem should open my mouth and everything that comes out will be the right thing to say. Amen. And I was inspired. I talked to my daughters. I talked to my husband. What is the best thing I can say? Because I have a very long and very complicated history. I mean, everybody has, but I feel mine is even worse. But it's also better. And so my hashgacha to me was a maze to discover. It took me a long time. I think after my father died, all of a sudden, before 7 years ago, that I actually got to see things the way I'm meant to see them. Before that, either I was too young, too simple, too something or other, that I didn't perceive reality the way I do today. So in the last 7 years, I've been growing up a lot more than I did 50 years earlier. So I want to pick up on words we heard today because everything happens to this for a reason, so things affect. And the connection that was made between Nisayon and Nes, trials and miracles, are very relevant also to this month. We have the Nisayon that Jews went through during the Hanukkah time, leading to Hanukkah. So we had the Nisayon and we had the Nes that followed it. Avraham Avinu had the Nisayon of having to take his son for a Kedah. And we have the Nes, that the ram was there, and then the ashes are on the altar, but he woke up from it. Like, if we see it the way we're supposed to see it, in life there are many nisyonot, but there is a Nes in the end. It just depends on our perception of what our reality is and what Hashem wants to do with us. So that's what I grew up after my father's death, because I had to make sense of what went on in my life in connection to him and what went on in his life in connection to how it affected the rest of us. And so that's how it relates to the story of the sleep, because unfortunately we are more asleep than awake more of the time. Hence, in the morning we have to say, open our eyes. And I have a friend who made Aliyah from UK, and she asked me, why do we say Poteach Ivrim instead of Poteach Ivrim? She's learning Hebrew now. So it's supposed to say Poteach Ivrim. And so I had to dig up, because I'm not that good in Hebrew either. I learned Hebrew when I came here, 16 years ago. So I had to dig out what's the reference to Pokeach instead of Poteach. And of course, Pokeach has to do with Pikuach. And I heard the connotation of pikuach is pikuach nefesh, like you save a soul, save a life. So why do we have to say pokeach? And so after much searching and learning, I realized that our eyes need healing in order to see, not opening. Because they're open physically, but it's not the open eyes that see, it's the healed eyes that see. Thank you for that question. Yeah, but it's much more to do with healing of misconceptions and misperceptions as opposed to smartness, because it's not a level of IQ we're talking here. No. It's a level of appreciating reality, the way Hashem wants us to appreciate reality. And so for me, having to say Akedat Etzad every morning is like such a reminder that we don't see reality for what it is. Avraham Avinu merited to be Avraham Avinu because from the very young age, he perceived reality for what it was, that the world isn't what he's presented to. The world is much beyond what people say it is, and it's not the idols, and it's not the philosophy of the time, and it's not what man perceives. The world is God's creation. And so every morning when I say that, it brings me back to where I'm supposed to be. How am I supposed to perceive reality? How he perceived his trials and how he managed to survive his life, getting to where he was, meriting to be who he was to begin with, and in getting to be who he was. And every step was a trial from from the time his father had to report him to the authorities, to going to the fiery furnace, to surviving it, to having to look after his nephew because his brother followed him and stayed there, didn't come out. Every step of his life was a trial leading to a miracle and therefore to growth. And saying Akedat Yitzchak and the fact that he says, here I am, no reservations, no worries, what do you want from me? Not another day of trial, here I am. And so having that clarity of vision and perception to take Hashem's hashgacha as it comes, and in our common words, roll with it, not have to argue about it. And when it came to arguing about it, why are you destroying the whole city? He did. He took it on. He didn't ignore evil. He didn't ignore disaster. He didn't ignore difficulty. He did his bit. What can I do about what is difficult? So even that he took on. He didn't brush off anything. He took reality for what it comes. And so for me, that's an inspiration. Ala Boker, every morning when you say, Akedat Yitzchak, it puts me that I am from this seed. I have what it takes. I have been given this position to deal with another day, and voila, we go with it. So I wanted to give you a chizuk, but that's what it does for me, and that's what it kind of focuses. You know how you sit on Zoom and you have to focus your camera so that they can see you better? So that's what I do. Kind of focuses my vision into what my day is going to be, and so I roll with it. Mm-hmm. The other thing I want to tell you about, we heard a lot today about surrounding yourself. And for me, it's the other way around. I am conscious of the fact that I am constantly surrounded because I didn't learn Hebrew as a child. So I learned Hebrew as a grown-up. And words mean different things to me. So when I heard, first time I heard Hamakom was when I had to do Menachem Agor with a friend in Manchester. And we had to say the Hamakom Menachem. And I thought there was this story of Hamakom because it's one of the names of Hashem. And that's when the pound dropped, not the penny. That we are in Hashem. We are in Hashem. Because when you're brought up with the world outside, that heaven is there and Hashem is there and we're here, it's like there is a boundary. Hashem finishes and the atmosphere begins. And it's not the other way around. He had to make a space to create creation. So we're in him. And then I came across the story about the twins. I think it's Rambam. I can't quote. The twins are arguing. One of them is thinking, this is the world there is, and going out of there will be death. And the other one says, no. This is just temporary. We're going to have a big world out there with a different life. You're arguing about this until one of them is born. And so there's a problem, is he dead or is he alive? And so this teaching is about how we are in Hashem. That is our existence. There's no out. And if we go out of this one into the next one, we're even a bigger world. This is temporary. So for me, it's a daily consciousness that I am in Hashem. My existence in Hashem. It's like a cell in your body, the heartbeat, the blood going around. None of us are out of anywhere. We don't need to surround ourselves. We just have to be conscious where we are. For me, that's a different consciousness. The fact that everything we do, we don't, we think, we don't, everything is within the consciousness of Hashem. It gives an entirely different weight to responsibility. It gives an entirely different perspective on worry. My husband is constantly complaining why I never worry. Because I know my worry doesn't do anything, and it does enough for both of us. So my worry doesn't go anywhere. I was brought up in a very difficult original family with all sorts of problems. I grew up during the war of Iran-Iraq, the revolution, for 10 years. I mean, there's only so much anyone can do. And then you just have to wait to see what's going to happen next. So, and then you live to tell the tale.
Tell us about that. How was that?
You live to tell the tale, time after time after time.
Put the mic down.
And then at some point
No,
in
just
time,
lay down.
and some point in time, you realize, okay, enough. What are you going to worry about? I mean, what does worry do? The only thing in my life I ever worried is my responsibility towards my immediate, my children, my husband, the mach I'm working with, my friends are in touch with me. Like my nearest and dearest, here, now my responsibility towards you. Anybody that is within my reach is a source of my worry. Did I do the right thing? Did I consider enough? Did I do mitzvahs? And I learned this when I met my Rebbetzin in Manchester.
When you what?
When I met my Rebbetzin in Manchester, I asked her once, I said, look, we've been through so much in life, and I can't make sense of life. It just doesn't make sense to a normal person, or I'm like kind of stupid, which I don't think I am, or I need to know how to make sense. Why is it that we're created in this world and we don't come with a job description? You're here to do A, B, C, D. Now go and learn how to do it. Makes life so much easier. Why do we have to search for ourselves and find ourselves and then find our purpose and then learn how to do it? It's like we can waste so much time going round and round. Why can't you just cut the chase? So much easier. By bat mitzvah, bar mitzvah, you get a letter. This is what you're here for. This is your tikkun. Shut up. No? So she laughed like you do. She says, but Melucha, we aren't given. I said, where? I haven't seen that note anywhere. I said, it's called Torah Chaim. I said, well, it's very general. He said, no, it's not. It's very specific. You're a specific person, born to a specific family, in a specific time, with specific talents, with specific cultural setup, with specific financial back. Like everything you are is specific to you. So within that specifics of you, there's a whole range of mitzvahs. You're not a man, exempt from filling. I don't know, you're not a doctor. You don't have to worry about halachas of medical rules. Whatever, like you're so limited into what you are. And therefore, all the mitzvahs of 613 and their derivatives, you can only do what you can do. So that's what you learn. Where you are, how you're connected to Torah, and what you can make real out of that Torah that you are connected to. That's your job description. You don't have to worry about engineers. You don't have to worry about politicians. You don't have to worry about doctors. You don't have to worry about being a man. I mean, how specific do you want it to get? And actually, finding out what you can and can't do is the pleasure of your life. That's you want to teach your children, right? You teach them how to learn, you teach them how to dance, you teach them how to draw. And when they figure out what they can do, it's such a joy. So Hashem didn't give you all the details, so you can enjoy figuring things out. How's that, Chesed? Brilliant. Okay, now we have a job description. And it took me time. It took me time to join the dots of what my life was about. And Baruch Hashem, in the last 2.5 years, I managed to get myself to the best place I could get myself. I worked for the Gemach in Chashmonaim. I am hugged by Chesed all the hours I'm there, and then it carries on all the hours I'm home. Because I talk all day, I walk all day, and I get home so exhausted. There's not one spare word left to argue. I cope with so many people's difficulties in life that everything I have at home is chesed shalem. My husband is the most perfect man there can be because he tolerates all my shortcomings. And therefore, I am hugged by God's chesed all the time. And I think in a certain way, it actually affects people around me because the Gemach is doing so much better because I'm okay. So everybody else connecting to me okay. And then I realized, oh my God, I fulfill what my Rebbetzin told me 20 years ago. That I found my purpose, I found my place, I'm doing a very good job. My boss is happy, people come there are happy, and all is good. So my perception got healed. The Nisayon led to Ness. And so I actually got a chance to tell the story, even if it's in little small nuggets, that for so long I was trying to make sense. But it had only to do with my own perception of reality. once I got that pikuach nefesh for myself, I could do this properly for everybody else. So I wanted to bless everyone. A, for having this wonderful place to come. B, for giving me a few minutes to say my word. And I would be more than happy to answer questions little at a time, because everybody's life is something to tell. It's just because we don't know about the other person, we think it's wow. But everybody's life has something to say. It's just once we get a little bit of that perception clarity, then we can appreciate ourselves more. And I think that's what is inspiring to everybody else. I get inspired by my boss on a daily basis. She creates this gemach. She thinks of every detail. She helps every person coming her way. And it's just such a pleasure to be with her. And it's such a pleasure to be in a place like this, who is just a galgal of chesed. Everybody there gives. The donors who give from their home, they give. The people who come there to volunteer to sort things out, they're givers. Even the people who feel needy to come to buy, they still give, they buy by kavod. They don't get free donations. They choose what they want, what they need, and their giving is actually feeding the families who get the benefit of the gemach shop, because the gemach distributes food twice a month to the needy. So I end up being a very important part of this galgal chesed. And I wish on everyone that they will find their purpose to the fullness of their heart.
I want to hear how you got out of Iran.
The only thing about getting out of Iran also is related to Nisayon living to Nes. I was 23. I remember missing my 23rd birthday. My dad had a very bad heart attack. He was 49 years old. This is after nearly 9 years of Iran-Iraq war after the revolution. He survived because he's being the leader of the family. So
Where were you living?
we were living in Tehran. I was brought up there. So he had to make life for a wife and for children, and of course he helped his parents, my mom's parents. So he had a difficult life, as far as I understood, as a young person.
Did you keep Shabbos? How was that
She didn't know
like being
anything
a Jew in
I
Tehran?
can only answer one question. How did I leave Iran? Was he had a heart attack. His heart attack was almost fatal. And so they decided that he needs an open heart surgery. He needs a bypass. And of course, at the time, this is 88, they couldn't do it in Iran.
What?
They couldn't do open heart bypass surgery in Iran. So his brother had moved to UK before the war in 70s. So he had a medical exemption. They got a medical visa out of Iran. He moved to UK to do his operation. And once he got to UK, his siblings organized immigration, refugee status? Asylum. So they got there, and then he brought my mom and siblings out of Iran. That's how we got. The Nisayon led to Nes. So we actually got, my brother was 88. 89 we got to UK. My brother was in army in 80s. But my dad one day told me, he says, do you want to come with me? I'm going to see somebody. And they have a daughter your age. I was about 18, 19. And I look at my mom, because we didn't do anything with Muslims. And my mom says, yes, you can go. So we went. I didn't get it, but there was this massive chandelier in the back of the car. And he had, like you see in movies in mafia, envelopes, like these fat envelopes. He had one of those fat envelopes with him. And we went to see this army general. I didn't know what it was. It was a girl my age. We talked. The fathers did their business, whatever it was. We went, we came back, and all went well. Next thing I know is my brother is being pulled off the truck that was going to go to the first line in the army. And they pulled him off the truck, and they put him somewhere, I don't know, like somewhere out of the way, so that he wouldn't be on the first line. The Nisayons lead to Nes. So he survived the army. But because he did the army, when there was time, 2-3 years later, that he needed to leave Iran, he paid to get a passport for him because he already had done the army. Like here, We have Miluim, they go back, they can't leave, but he managed to buy that. He managed to buy him leaving because he was the only person problematic to leave the country. And he needed a melava, he needed accompaniment, somebody to take him to hospital. And through that, he managed to get my brother out of there. Once he got him out of there, my youngest brother at the time was only 11. They couldn't leave the country by 13 years old because they become expected to join the army, yes. So he couldn't leave. But this was just the timing. He had his heart attack. He had his brother fixing operation in UK. So he left UK with my older brother who had already served. And they managed to get my younger brother out of there before he had to be, so all the nisyonot lead to nisim if we can see it. Obviously, I'm telling the story in hindsight. At the time, I didn't know what it is. Though even at the time, we knew this was a miracle, that it did work. A hashgacha worked this way out like this. It's just when we have to tolerate difficulty, we get so absorbed in this flesh and blood of ours and all the hormones, it just blurs the vision. It blurs our vision of reality. And that's why I am so conscious of Birkot HaShachar, to say, Pokeach Ivrim, that we have that clarity to see God's hashgacha, how it works in our lives. And so that gives koach. You're never alone. Like a baby in mom's womb. You're never out of it. We're always there. So once you see it this way, it's very difficult not to see it anymore. I mean, you really need to be unconscious not to see it anymore. Yeah. So that gives a koach, to see it that way, to say the words we have to say, and to expect that the nourishment that the mom gives to the child is always there. It's not even a choice. Like the child can't refuse that nourishment is going to come. And we are surrounded by this nourishment and protection all the time. All the time. We just have to acknowledge it that we are. And then life is so much easier. It's not easier the way we as human beings say. The way Avraham Avinu managed to have it easier. He rolled with it. And I think it's such a good expression in English. And I'm such a privileged person to have different languages. Because I get the best of all the languages, What I learned English was to my advantage. What I learned Hebrew is to my advantage, And we can roll with it. We don't have to be such a, we don't have to make sense of everything. It doesn't make sense half the time. And our senses are so much polluted by the philosophy of the time and the place we grew up. If I were to think how Muslims think, I won't be sitting here. If I were to think how Westerns think, I won't be sitting here. So sometimes we just have to get over ourselves. We really have to get over ourselves.
Memory of you not being able to show your hands in public. Can you please explain that to us?
That's a misconception that you have because of the news you've been exposed to.
No, you told me the story.
No, the story I told you was not showing my hand. The story is like this. We went to get some groceries done with my mom, and my mom, being very, very stylish, always had red nails. Always. All my life. My children also know. She always has red, polished, beautiful nails. And so we went to get my brother's army suit that she gave to dry cleaners. I mean, nobody in the right mind will give army suit to dry cleaners, but my mom did. So we're coming back, this army suit on her hand, and a whole lot of lafot. And lafot in Iran are like this big, pillow size. So we have this lafot on top of this army suit, and I just had my perm. It's in 80s, remember? I had my perm all the way here, so I didn't cover my scarf properly. I left a little bit curl out. I was 20-something. And so we're walking, and of course in Iran, they have what they call tzniut or police. They have these four-wheel drive cars with two women and two men with their machine gun going around, watching people having their scarves on, their suits on, whatever. And we're walking, and we saw them coming towards us. And my mom looked to see if it's for us or somebody else, and of course it was for us. And she keeps saying, I told you, cover your hair. Cover your hair, because my clothes were showing under the scarf. It's not like Arab countries that we had to cover our face. It was just around your face, like Arabs do here. So I pushed it in, whining, but I pushed it in. And when they stopped, they came to talk to her. Madam, We can see your red nails all the way there.
Whoa.
Now what do you do with that? I mean, I could push my hair in, we can't do much with your nails. And so she started panicking. She said, I'm so sorry. We were at the wedding and I forgot because I have to come and get this uniform for my son. He has to go to army today, blah, blah. And then he said, okay, next time you go around with gloves because you're not supposed to have red nails. That's the story you heard. You have to cover your hands if it's got red nail polish. Not that we had to do it all the time. But there was nude police and people did get arrested. People did get arrested if they weren't properly. Only later I heard from somebody they were engaged and they took their jewelry and presents to the office they were working in to show their friends. And this nude police walked into this office to check everybody. And of course, everyone, new color, just engaged. She must have taken her head cover on to show something. They arrested her and another worker. They were jailed for that night and they were whipped 10 lashes each for 2 nights. That was their punishment.
Recently?
No, then at the time.
What do they do now?
I don't know. I don't have anything to do with Iran for the past 30 odd years I lived there.
Well,
But it's not the same. Nothing's the
there
same.
are some news coming out. What's happening? There was this lawyer, and okay, I don't even want to go there.
Anyway, so that's the answer to the story. We didn't have to cover our hands. And of course, Nissim you're not leave to Nissim. And I think that's the message I wanted to give everyone. That we are in this month. It was Yehudit who managed to inspire her brothers to lead the rebellion. Nisyonot lead to Nissim. If we remember this, we have a koach of this month. So all be blessed with sight and understanding. Yes.
One second. I already know, you're a beautiful speaker and you speak very beautifully. Second is, for 9 years, you had to endure this not burqa, it's a good cover your face, but what is it about your job?
Yes.
So how was it what did it do to you? Did it do anything to you? Did it traumatize you in any way?
I can say yes and no. First of all, because everybody had to do it. It was not a matter of religion. It was a matter of women. So there were Orthodox Muslims at the time who wore those. They were known. But it became compulsory for everyone, regardless of their status, regardless of their religion. So my dad was very scared. I was 15 when this imposition. Yes, when the woman. Yes. So then we had to wear it. Everybody had to wear it. So you weren't personally victimized. Everybody was in the same pot, but it was a victimization. On the flip side of it, when you are in that kind of position, to my understanding, your survival instinct takes over and you're not a victim anymore. You just have to survive. So it's very different. Victimization is when you feel helpless and you can't do something about it. But we survived it. So when you survive it, you don't stay a victim. Years later, when we were in UK already, when I started wearing head covering, this is already in 2000. So it's about 10 years after we left Iran. We were in England for 10 years. My hair was open. Everybody's hair was open. And I started wearing head covering. My mom lost it.
Wow.
Because for her, the trauma came back. That we were imposed to do this then, and now you're regressing 2,000 years of civilization, covering your hair again. She couldn't handle that. She couldn't handle that. To me, it was such a privilege that I grew up with my hair covered. So if I understand now I have to cover my hair, what's the problem? I grew up with my hair covered. If anything, in England, it's so cold, you like to have it covered. I mean, the first year I was there, I got myself a massive pashmina. And I went around with pashmina around my head. It was cold. So in England, it isn't difficult to cover your hair. But for me, because I grew up as a child, imposed upon head covering, when I had the chance to choose it for myself, I felt empowered. That this is my privilege and it's not superimposed. It's for me. I chose it. It's my crown. I'm happy. But for my mom, it was a trauma.
Is she still alive?
Yes, both of them.
So what does she say now?
It took a lot of tefillot, a lot of siyata d'shmaya, and I had to find a way to make my head covering as decent, as pretty, as pleasing as possible to her feelings. And there was a time that she bought me scarves. She bought me scarves. Like she would show me, she says, would you want this?
Is
I
she in
have a whole
England? Is
set
she
of
in England or
She's
here?
in UK. She's in UK. Yeah. I wear hats for a while, so that's easier for her. It doesn't look like a scarf. And then afterwards, I played with scarves. How do I wrap my head the best way that she's going to be happy for me to turn up in my scarf? Because we have the responsibility to do so. You know, we have to please people around us. We can't do what we want. And she's a very important person in my life. And so I had a lot of prayers and a lot of siyata d'shmaya that she got to accept me the way I was, and that she saw that I'm happy. It's not imposed. I'm not traumatized. It's a choice. And so she was happy with it. But it was a great deal. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.